loose like twice right there.
I know, it's awesome though.
I just wanna
Sometimes you don't want the rain to get in your hood exhaust, so just put a little tractor flapper on it. It's so good.
It's literally like driving a diesel, dude. I feel like I've got a diesel truck that I'm drag racing right now.
When Jonathan gets his hood exhaust, we gotta get him one of those things too. And then, well, you guys could be like twinners.
Yeah, I was like, fuck it, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna rain, it's gonna fill that thing up like a rain gauge.
Yeah.
And then my turbo's gonna rust.
I'm gonna put a little styrofoam thing that floats so the little thing comes out to tell you how much rain we've got.
How many inches we got that week?
Hey guys, we're back, and Jonathan got a new surprise in the mail.
Oh yeah.
Guess what it is? So we ordered this just on eBay. I believe it was a little over $100, and came pretty quick. We got it in like 3 days. They came out with these a while ago, and they're like $350, $400, and for that price point, I was like, well, maybe I'll just spend $600 and get like an actual welded tubular manifold, because I already know that those diamond weld make really good horsepower. But for $100, this thing is seeming like to be like a really good buy. And we figured we could use this on Jonathan's car, since his welded one, you know, it's getting to the point where it's sold, it's cracked many times, and he's just had a lot of problems with it. So I think that this will replace the old one really without much or any compromise, and it'll put the turbo in the top mount position, which is really, really easy to work on going forward. I mean, just having the bolts and the turbo and all the service items like up top versus down low, and then just being able to, like, if you go under the car, you can service the wastegate. It really puts things in a good spot, I think. So the only thing I noticed last time that I installed one, I did one recently on my friend's GSR, is that you do need to have a half radiator to install this. It definitely sticks out way too far. It will not clear with a full length radiator. And you're obviously gonna have to redo your downpipe if you have a turbo already, and you're gonna have to maybe remodify your boost pipe on the one side, and obviously extend your turbo oil line. So keep in mind there's a little bit of stuff you'll have to do to get this to actually fit, and I don't believe anybody makes any bolt-on parts for it, which kind of sucks, but I'm sure in the future somebody's gonna put together a kit that will actually work. So I don't know, for now, if you have like access to a welder and $100 and a turbo, should be pretty good. Alright guys, so problem number one is the manifold. It's like where they drilled the holes is just slightly off, so we're oversizing the holes a little bit right now. We've already widened out the two outside bolts, and it's still not sliding on the studs very well, so we're gonna go ahead and just do the whole bottom row. That way it should like slide on nice. So we're gonna go ahead and drill that out right now and then see if it actually fits. What I wanted to do is kind of set it up on the sander and go ahead and plane the surface and see if it was actually straight. You know, make sure that this casting is nice and true. Okay, so we're about ready to bolt the manifold onto the engine, and we realized that the actual factory studs are a little bit too short to be able to put a bolt on to fasten it to the motor. So we had to use a stud puller and pull all the studs out of the actual cylinder head. So you can see down there, there's no factory studs in it anymore. And then we went to the Home Depot and we got ourselves some 8mm by 1.25, 30 millimeters long bolts, you know, with like a nice like flange head, and it's got some little ridges on the back to try to keep it retained on the back of the manifold. Okay, we got it fastened into the car, and it's a little bit hard to hold the gasket and put bolts through the manifold because it's sort of heavy. So it's definitely going to be better if we get a few studs in here, at least 2 just to index it so it slides on nice. But anyway, that's going to work great. We're going to go ahead and bolt these on, and then we're going to take a look underneath the manifold and see what we can do with the wastegate placement. Now that this is sitting in the car, you guys can really see the spacing and the placement, and you can tell there's just not a lot of room between that and the radiator, which is kind of normal for a top mount, but you definitely would never be able to fit like a full-size radiator with this. The front end just doesn't accommodate enough room. So luckily Jonathan already has a half radiator. It's no big deal. These are cheap. You guys can just switch out to that, but definitely a necessity if you're going to do this style manifold. Okay, so we got a couple bolts holding the manifold on, and we went ahead and set the turbo in now, and it's a pretty like close fit. So I mean, ultimately I think if you had a bigger turbo, you would utilize more of the space back here. It would be up and back a little, but some cars, they're probably going to require just a little bit of trimming, I would imagine, if you went too much bigger on the turbo size. But yeah, turbo sits this way. I think it looks pretty cool. Goes down to the intercooler piping, and obviously we'll be doing something on this side here in just a minute. Quick other note, I would not recommend using this garbage gasket that they give you with the manifold. You guys know by now how I feel about these cardboard looking crap gaskets. They're just going to blow out, so don't use that. Just use your factory one, or get a new multi-layer steel, or just single layer steel is fine as well. Kind of like this one. This is a single layer steel with a little stamped index. These work great, so use something like this. There's the wastegate hole, but Jonathan doesn't have a 2-bolt 38, which would be the normal kind of cheaper eBay wastegate size. We actually have a precision 40, I think it's a 40 millimeter, but anyway, a much bigger precision unit. So it's not like a super big deal. We're just going to take a new precision wastegate weld-on flange, and we are going to weld it to the bottom of the manifold, and that should take care of Jonathan's problem. Okay, so I pulled the manifold back off, and I'm setting it up on the welder right now. We're going to go ahead and get some welds on it, and then stick it back on the car. Alright guys, you can kind of see that it's a big pain to get this oil line past the manifold. We had to extend it with a 45 and then kind of bring it down under the pan, but now that we got that kind of past there, it's okay. So just keep in mind you need to get it like a longer piece if you're gonna do this style manifold so you can get past the top mount. Okay, so we're just buttoning it up right now. I figured I'd show you the end. Basically, we just turned and modified his boost piping a little bit so that it would fit back around into the intercooler. And Jonathan's just putting his bumper back on, but it is kind of a good amount of work to change this over to a top mount style. The oil line was obviously a little different, piping needed to be changed, and the downpipe obviously be completely different on pretty much every car. On this one, we just decided to, I don't know, put it out the hood, so he just kind of wanted to have his exhaust like Raven. This is kind of just a temporary exhaust for now. It's like a cut-off version of his old one with a little like expander welded to the end. Kind of fun. We'll go ahead and cut the hood for it, and then like later on we might do something a little bit more interesting. Alright, fire it up. Anyway, it's the end of the day today, and it's super, super hot, so I can't actually finish dyno tuning it. But I'm going to come back in the morning and then sort it out. And I think my customer's actually in town, so he might be able to come hang out with me. So I'm pretty excited. The base pull is like 11 and a half, 12 pounds. Made over 300 already. The tune's super rich and needs a little fixing. So I imagine the base number is going to go up, and then the ECU controller has a built-in PWM, pulse width modulated boost control. So we can actually use that to turn the boost up very easily in the car tomorrow. All right, I'm taking off for the day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Alright guys, so as you saw in the last video, I welded on Jonathan's wastegate to that cast manifold. Didn't work very well. So he actually was driving around and it ended up cracking off only like 1 day later. So not a good idea in hindsight. Might just be the particular type of casting, but basically right now we gotta take this all back apart again, and we're gonna surface the bottom portion of it and drill and tap some new holes and create a bolt-on flange. So we're gonna get that going right now, and in the meantime I'm gonna work on dyno tuning this TR6, which is pretty much the identical twin to the TR8 that I worked on earlier this year. So we're gonna go ahead and make some dyno pulls. I think baseline right now on 11 pounds, with the tune being a little bit off, I can tell on timing and as well as fuel. It's making a little over 300 and about 300 foot-pounds of torque. Alright, just in case you're wondering, I was just informed that this car is actually, well, it's a TR8 kinda, because it has a V8, you said?
It's got a V8, yeah. TR7 had a 4-cylinder. TR8.
TR8 basically, okay. Do a few more pulls and see what we get. Alright guys, so we finished it up and we turned the boost up just a few pounds to see what happened. Make sure it wasn't like leaning out or anything. It's still just a hair on the rich side, but basically, I mean, this thing makes amazing torque in the mid-range, and we're pretty happy with where it's at. It's already a lot of power considering the car only weighs, you know, about 2,400 pounds. So keep in mind, it's like crazy hot today. I think on a cold pull, this will make 350 torque and probably 330 horsepower at like maybe 12 pounds. Okay, next order of business. I'm basically gonna sand it flat and try to make him a bolt-on flange again, drill and tap some new holes, and then he should be fine like forever at that point. So kind of a bummer. I've welded to some castings before, like turbo housings, and I haven't had any particular issues. But this, I don't know, even with preheating it and doing a bunch of stuff, it just didn't work. So don't be like me and try that. It's not gonna work.
Coming in, flex.
After all that work, I basically got one little flange welded to a V-band, and I sanded this down and cleaned it up and re-tapped the holes, and now it'll just bolt on and then go directly to his wastegate, and that pretty much solves the problem. So, lesson learned, a lot of extra work for no reason. I guess we won't try to weld to that particular type of cast. Well, that's about it for the week. That was pretty fun to tune like a V8, something a little different than I normally tune. And I think he's gonna enjoy it, and I think he's probably gonna turn the boost up. Oh man, what a week. What a week. Jonathan's busy bolting on his wastegate and his turbo setup. Eventually we need to, whoa, it's bright out here. Eventually we need to retune and see if that manifold makes more power, like I think it will, at the same wastegate setting and the same boost level. And if that's the case, then I can give my final recommendation on whether I like that manifold or not. I actually have 2 Acura Integras with that manifold right now, so I'll really be able to see what we can make. Be kind of interesting to see how efficient it is. Alright, I think that pretty much concludes this week. I'll see you guys in a few days or sometime next week. We'll see what we get up to.